A third and final misconception is that it is selfish to think of rewards as a proper motivation to serve Christ. After all, the argument goes, we should serve God out of love, and love alone. Shouldn't a basketball player give his best just for the sheer love of the game? Furthermore, I have heard it said, will we not cast our crowns before him anyway? Implying that we will give up our rewards and they will not mean anything beyond our initial meeting with Christ. This is based on the assumption that the rewards are nothing more than the crowns themselves. Certainly rewards are sometimes spoken of symbolically as crowns, but the rewards themselves have to do with levels of responsibility that will be given to us. Regardless of what we do with our crowns, our rewards will reach into eternity. Of course, it is quite right that we should serve God simply, because He is God and worthy of our devotion. Yes, we should serve Him, because we love Him rather than wanting a better position in the kingdom. Servants should simply serve, expecting nothing in return. But, as we shall see, there is more than one motivation for serving Christ. Love is one, fear, another. Another motivation for serving is a strong desire that we would please Christ, who is eager to share His inheritance with us. It is not selfish to want Christ's approval. He wants us to win the right to rule with Him in the kingdom, and that should be our passionate yearning. A basketball player who loves the game will give his best, but he would be especially motivated if he knew the coach, whom he loves, had chosen to openly reward the faithful. Let's not overlook the connection Paul makes between pleasing Christ and doing well at the judgment seat of Christ.
So we make it our goal to please Him whether we are at home in the body or away from it. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each of us may receive what is due us for the things done while in the body, whether good or bad.
I would like to hear Christ say,
Well done, good and faithful servant.
And I believe you would too. I would like to live in such a way that Christ would count me worthy to rule with Him. You feel the same way. Obviously no credit goes to us. In heaven, ruling with Christ will have no overtones of pride and self-seeking. But being found worthy to rule, because we love Christ, was Paul's desire and should be ours. Christ often and unapologetically motivated the disciples with the prospect of rewards. He told them that they should put their treasures in heaven, where their money would have more security and a better rate of return.
But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal.
That He often promised them that if they were sacrificially obedient, their reward will be great. Think of the biblical saints who were driven to serve Christ because of the prospect of a reward. Abraham was willing to leave Ur and live in tents.
For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God.
He died without having received the promise, but it was this promise that motivated him to obey God. He was rewarded in the life to come. Moses was willing to leave the treasures of Egypt.
He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward.
A careful calculation made him realize that it made sense to give up the visible earthly reward for the invisible future reward. Anyone who exchanges a lesser reward for a greater one is wise. Paul feared that he might fail, and thus be disqualified in the race of life. He urged believers in Philippi to prove themselves to be blameless in this perverse generation.
As you hold firmly to the word of life, and then I will be able to boast on the day of Christ that I did not run or labor in vain.
He was motivating them to do well in the day of Christ. In fact, he wanted us to glory in the life to come. Christians who piously avoid any suggestion that the prospect of rewards should motivate us would be wise to admit their mistake, and take up the challenge of Jonathan Edwards. Resolved, to endeavor to obtain for myself as much happiness in the other world as I possibly can, with all the power, might, vigor and vehemence, yea violence, I am capable of, or can bring myself to exert, in any way, that can be thought of. Iosifton, who points out that rewards are not decorative medallions, in which we can take pride. The deepest reward is in the very fact, that we will become, what our Creator intends us to become. It is the reward of being made into the likeness of Christ. When we will be like Him, we will be qualified to share with Him in the inheritance, and to work with Him in important positions of high responsibility over the whole universe. Our rewards are a continuation of our responsibilities begun on earth. I am convinced that those who have been unfaithful will suffer serious loss. A.J. Gordon wrote, I cannot think of a final divine reckoning which shall assign the same rank in glory, the same degree of joy to a lazy, indolent and unfruitful Christian as to an ardent, devoted, self-denying Christian. If this life is a training ground for greater responsibilities, believers will be thoroughly judged. Then once eternity begins they will differ in glory, as light bulbs differ in brightness. Hell will not be the same for everyone, and heaven will not be the same for everyone. The way we live here will have eternal, unchangeable, and profound consequences. The cup of cold water given in the name of Christ will not be forgotten, nor will the impure, self-indulgent Christian inherit the full blessings of the kingdom. Earl Rademacher says that the person I am becoming today is preparing me for the person I shall be for all of eternity. Much will change about us in eternity, but much shall also remain the same. We will be the same people we were here on earth, though with a new nature and eventually a new body. And because our position in eternity will be momentous, the life I live today is momentous, eternally momentous. Only in this life can we impact our eternity. We must pause long enough to let the reality of standing before Christ sink into our consciousness. Just Christ and you. Just Christ and me.